Assalamualaikum and good morning everyone. Welcome to our forum discussion for today. First of all, I would like to thank all the panel members for joining this forum discussion today. Without any further ado, I would like to call on Miss Adriana Farhani binti Fazrul Kamal, a student from UITM Dungun, Terengganu, to answer the first question. Our topic that we will discuss today is about distance learning and work, effectiveness or not. As we all know, we had to go through distance learning and work because of the pandemic COVID-19 and still doing it. As a student, do you believe that distance learning and work is still effective? What do you think?
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I believe that a lot of students in Malaysia are facing distance learning right now, not to forget to the people who are facing distance working too. Some people think that it is better to do distance learning and work, but some are not. Firstly, I would like to elaborate some introductions about distance learning and work. Greenberg 1998 defines contemporary distance learning as a planned teaching or learning experience that uses a wide spectrum of technologies to reach learners at a distance and is designed to encourage learner interaction and certification of learning. Tester and Lisner 1999 say the term distance learning has been applied to many instructional methods. However, its primary distinction is that the teacher and the learner are separate in space and possibly time. For me, I agree that distance learning and work have a lot of advantages. This is because, based on my research on this issue, Gilliver, Randall, and Pop 1998 discussed the effect of online courses on learning and found higher learning effectiveness of the experiment group with web-based learning. In the meantime, Shiratuddin 2001 studied 169 college students with lecturing and online learning and also discovered the higher learning effectiveness of the online learning group. In another study conducted by Uri et al. 1995 proved the higher learning effectiveness of the matched group than the individual group. There are a lot of factors in learning effectiveness. When 2009 indicated that learners are preferring abstract concepts in passively observed learners appear to have higher learning effectiveness. Hence, I believe that there are a lot more advantages that people can get from distance learning and work. However, I also think that distance learning and work is not effective at some point, but I'm sure that distance learning and work has a lot of advantages rather than disadvantages.
Thank you, Miss Adriana Farhani, for the explanation that distance learning and work are effective. I believe all the explanation from Miss Adriana Farhani have gone through a lot of research. Now, I would like to ask the second question to Ahmad Rashidi bin Rosli, a student from UITM Dungun as well. As the second panel for this forum discussion, as we all know that people already start doing distance learning for almost 2 years. Some of them enjoy it happily and some of them suffer hurtfully. From your perspective as a student, what do you feel after being through distance learning and do you think this situation is a good idea for students?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Ahmad Hafiz. As for me as a student, there are few points from my research that I did from indianeducation.net, where the author is Nashita Abram Bejish. To do or not to do, that is a question that most of students are pondering their feeling on continue their studies through distance learning. It is because the mixed feeling happen due to the pros and cons of distance learning. A few pros about this that students feel they can save money. A fee of distance education degrees may be more affordable than the regular on-campus degrees. Next, students feel they can pursue a job along their study due to this pandemic crisis. Students do not want to burden their family, so it can help them financially while they are study distance. Lastly, students can study whenever and wherever to the flexible space. Students do not need to start in the classroom. They can study at the garden, living room, or at the comfortable own bed. Irrespectively of whether students are morning light or are night owl, they can choose the optimum time to study whenever they think they are productive the best. And the con from this is, firstly, chance of distract is high, with no faculty around or face-to-face interaction and no classmate that can help them with a consistent reminder about panic assessment. And the chance of getting distracted are losing track of deadline are high. Lastly, hidden costs. Although the cost of distance education program is cheaper than regular program, there are hidden costs involved. For example, laptop and internet connection. So, from this mixed feeling, is it a good idea? It's 100% depend of the student capability. Some of them success happily, and not everyone survive in the battle of distance learning. Some of them fail hurtfully. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad Rashidi. What a great explanation from you. I believe that distance learning can be very effective not just for the student, but also to the people around them. Moving on to the next question, I would like to ask Ms. Ayuatira. As we know, the outbreak of the COVID-19 has affected the majority of people on the earth. This pandemic also, of course, has an impact on working people, especially since a lot of premises need to be shut down in order to prevent the transmission of the virus. As a result, they opting for distant work or working from home. So, Ms. Ayuatira, as you are an officer and have experience of working from home, what do you think are the challenges in working from home?
Thank you for the question, Mr. Hafiz. It is a good question actually. I will be lying if I say there is no problem when working from home. If we look at it from one perspective, it does benefit the workers as they can stay at home, no need to travel, and can save time working. However, if we look at it from another perspective, there are actually many challenges that the worker itself needs to deal with. So to answer your question, I will refer to the article that I have read before by Nurul Nadia from Multimedia University. Based on facts from the United States National Study of Changing Workforce, or NSCW by Halpern, studied how time-bending painting rules can enhance health, lessen stress, and save money. However, despite the benefits, the employees, including me, have a lot of concerns. Firstly, falling into slackness. According to Visual 2016, he said that the timetable for working has become more flexible and the workers can set up their own timetable, which is actually good for them. However, it will result in the workers delaying their work time and also not taking their work seriously until it reaches the deadline. This is actually not a good habit since each time is precious. Second concern that arises is the lack of the competitive spirit in working. Lack of human interaction and communication with co-workers and the boss dampens the competitive spirit and may impair employee productivity. Because the office is a location where employees may interact and meet new people, it may be the ideal approach to get away from stress at home and vice versa. Unfortunately, those who are working at home may not be able to find a way out, and thus resulting in people not having the high spirit to finish their tasks. Last but not least, the concern from the perspective of the employer also needs to be looked at. According to Harper 2005, the increase in work flexibility and option to work from home has led to increase in operating costs such as installing hardware, software, and telecommunications infrastructure. This problem is actually not good for employees' professional career development as there is lack of communication. The quality of work decreases, lack of supervision on work, and so on. Therefore, even though there are a lot of benefits when doing distance learning, we can never overlook the problems. We must take note of this possible problem and take precautions so that when it does happen to ourselves, we can overcome the challenges more easily. That's all.
Thanks a lot, Ms. Ayuatira, for your excellent response. Now, I understand more about the challenges faced by the working people. Next question. I would like to ask Mr. Amirul, can you elaborate about parents' perspective on how distance learning affects young children during COVID-19 class suspension?
Thank you, Mr. Hafiz. I'm glad that I could share my opinion and extensive reading about the issue. we look at the perspective of parents. My own experience as a working person and parents for three children, many parents were stressed about being sure their kids attended every Zoom morning meeting. Parents who work from home or in the office must arrange childcare and support their children's distance learning. Parents are now trying to juggle many roles at once and feel pressure to spend more time with their kids, teaching them while also working from home. Parents will naturally face many challenges and issues if not properly trained and prepared. According to the article that I researched, writing by Eva Ying Hong Lau from University of Hong Kong, a recent study found that parents who report highest levels of difficulties in supporting children learning than before the pandemic were found to be more stressed, Spinelli 2020. Next, according to the article, the percentage of parents feeling dissatisfied with learning during class suspension were higher among those without online learning than those offer online learning, with primary school parents without online learning being the group with the highest percentage of dissatisfaction. The highest distance learning to address their children's learning needs while staying at home. More primary school parents were dissatisfied with their children's learning than kindergarten parents regardless of whether school offer online learning. In response to the pandemic, it is important to provide appropriate support to parents. School needs to communicate with parents to find out what kind of support is needed by parents during the class suspensions. The government should also provide guidelines to ensure that the content of distance learning meets with educational requirements while not overburdening families and students. Last but not least, future research should examine how various school and family factors affect the effectiveness of children's learning during the class suspensions. How about you, Mr. Hafiz? Do you think working from home will work during this pandemic time in the future?
Oh, thank you so much for the explanation, Mr. Amiro. Now I understand more about the distance learning and working. And thank you again for the question. Yeah, I did some research too before we did our forum discussion today. I'm also glad that I can be a part of this discussion. I would like to share with all of you about the evidence from the Chinese experiment that is based on the employees working from home. In the bracket WFH, it is reported that home working led to a 13% performance increase, of which 9% was from working more minutes per shift, fewer breaks and sick days, and 4% from more calls per minute, attributed to a quieter and more convenient working environment. Home workers also reported improved work satisfaction and their attrition rate halved, but their promotion rate conditional on performance fell. Due to the success of the experiment, Ctrip rolled out the option to WFH to the whole firm and allowed the experimental employees to reselect between the home and office. Interestingly, over half of them switched, which led to the gains from WFH almost doubling to 22%. This highlights the benefits of learning and selection effects when adopting modern management practices like WFH. Let's move on to our last panel, Dr. Aisha. Thank you so much for joining our forum discussion today. I am informed that you have been experienced as a lecturer for about 10 years, but the end of the those but the end of those 2 years is definitely not something you normally go through as a lecturer compared to the previous 8 years, since distance learning has been implemented in those 2 years in Malaysia. So I would like to know your opinion on distance learning from the perspective of a lecturer or a teacher.
Thank you for having me here. I am honored for being here and having this discussion. I truly believe that the lecturer's responsibility is not so much in the transmission of the knowledge in distance learning. According to Bukina, MMSHS Web of Conference, active independent work of the lecturer is an important part of innovative online learning. The lack of continual face-to-face interaction with the lecturer, which forces the student to develop their own educational process, is an aspect of learning in a digital educational environment. Therefore, the role of the lecturer is no longer only focused on the transfer of knowledge, but in the organization of cognitive activity and the direction of creative activity of the student. In the, In the digital educational environment, the lecturer's activities are varied. To work in such an educational environment, a lecturer must learn new types of professional activities and duties that he was not previously familiar with. For example, the e-learning courses created and author, the lecturer as the educational process organizer, the organizer of joint activities of students, and more. Hence, the roles of a lecturer in a digital educational environment are similar to those of a lecturer in traditional education, with the exception of implementation details. In addition, based on the result of survey, the following are named as the optimal ways of educational interaction with the lecturer. First, webinar. It is 46.4%. Forum, 39.1%. Video services such as Open Meetings and Skype, 32.2%. Practical work presented in digital form where it is with a feedback from the lecturer, 29.5%. Individual consultations, 30.6%. A combination of tools such as screen translation, group chat, and audio conference. Join documents in Google Documents, 41.5%. And the last one is email, 13.7%. Thus, as for me, this has provided an opportunity to explore something new for myself in order to be a more efficient and successful person. Moreover, the technologies that have come into existence now greatly facilitates me as a lecturer to deliver learning to my students well. That's all.
Great explanation from Dr. Aisha. Thank you so much. That is it for the first round of our forum discussion. I do believe that this discussion can give a lot of information and benefits to other people out there. Let us move on to the second round. Now, I would like to ask another question to Miss Adriana Farhani as our first panel for today. Do you think that the online learning should be normalized for the future?
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad Hafiz. I do think that distance learning and work should be normalized for the future because, as we all know, distance learning and work have been practiced since a long time ago in the past. Some people have already normalized distance learning and work in their life. Some people too have experience in distance learning in their student life and continue distance working in their working life. With the technology that we have right now, I'm sure a lot of people, including the students, have at least one handphone. Electronic learning covering online learning, which allows learners to have access for educational content and have one-way or two-way communication with other learners and instructors through computer networks, intranet, internet, and www, provides quick, easy, and flexible access for all kinds of content through digital devices such as CD-ROMs, DVDs, computers, and mobile phones. A study from Keegan 2002, mobile learning started to become an education sector with the rapid increase in the numbers of mobile telephones. This shows that a lot of people use their mobile phone to study and do distance learning. Bowman and Wood 2003, Lever Duffy et al. 2003 also stated that the wireless handheld devices such as PDA, mobile phone, wireless laptop, and tablet PC, which are always on and always with the learner, location aware and individualized, allows learner-learner and learner-instructor interaction just in time. People always have their access to learn and work anywhere and anytime. With all the research that I've done before, I do believe that distance learning and work can be normalized for the future because technology will become more and more advanced in the future, especially in learning methods. That's all from me. Thank you.
Well, I think that is some brilliant idea, Miss Adriana. Next question I would like to ask to our third panel, Miss Ayu Atira. Before, you have said that there are a lot of challenges faced by working people. Working from home can actually increase the stress level because they need to cope with the house chores, and also work at the same time. So, in your opinion, how can we manage ourselves to be stress-free and enjoy working at home?
Thank you, Mr. Hafiz, for the question. So for this question, I will answer according to a journal by Christian Wiradendiwolo from Universitas Negeri Jakarta. This is quite an important issue as the problem actually revolves in our life. Regarding the management of stress level actually depends on the person because not every way is suitable for them to cope with their stress. But there is a guideline that we can follow, which is firstly communication. As we know, the person that is working from home needs to deal with their job as well as their family. Because of increasing workload and there also family wanting to interact with us, which will result in job stress. So in order to solve the problem is by communicating with your family. Why with the family? It is because we need their understanding to let us work with a good environment, especially children as they know nothing. By getting support from the family, it can boost the workers' morale and can increase their productivity. Second, create a good schedule that is work balance. Employees can work out schedules with other family members such as spouse, wife, and children so that they can continue working while still having time to play. According to Jones and Graham 2015, creating a schedule for the distribution of chores in childcare between husband and wife is also vital in maximizing work from home to minimize family problems that can lead to conflict and stress. Last but not least, the most important thing is to manage our health both physically and mentally. According to Boydinos, Galanikoska, Jong, and Stansfeld 2016, one needs to maintain fitness requires exercise, a healthy diet, and a supply of vitamins and medications. By following this tip, we can maintain our good health and can work properly at home. In conclusion, employees are more exposed to stress as a result of working from home. This problem can lead to drain our energy, raise stress level as they need to adapt to working at home. So with the tips shared in this forum, I hope it can help the workers out there to maintain their stress level. What about you, Mr. Hafiz? Do you think the company should adopt the work from home method to their employees throughout the pandemic and why?
Oh, I am surprised by the question from Miss Ayuatira. Well, this is my answer. According to Lecker B, the company should adopting a hub and spoke work model. This model suggesting a balanced working on the industries and working from home. Based on your question, it will be 50-50 because the method that I just mentioned earlier is balanced on working from home and on industries. The hub and spoke concept is not new. The term derived from the airport industry, where instead of sending half-empty flights directly between smaller spoke destinations, airlines have passengers change flight at a central hub between the two airports. More recently, the term has come to refer to a more flexible workspace and working style, given that hub and spoke offices allow employees to work from either their city hub, a dedicated strategy spoke location such as a regional workspace or a personal home-based spoke. I hope that my answer is enough for this question. Moving on to the next question. Can Mr. Amirul elaborate more on qualitative review from parents' perspective? And is it right that online learning is not effective from their point of view?
Thank you a lot, Mr. Hafiz. Here I'm again to answer that question. So, for this question, I will answer according on qualitative perspective of parents review. The content review. Four underlying themes regarding the perception of parents about their roles and responsibility in relation to distance learning among their children during the COVID-19 virus outbreak. These four themes were personal barriers, technical barriers, logistical barriers, and financial barriers. According to the article written by Sultan Abu Hamad, the first theme parents felt many personal barriers hampered their children's distance learning experience. The parents' lack of training in distance learning technique and materials, as well as the lack of trained personnel to assist them, were clearly major concerns. Then, the second tip, many parents complain about their kids being disconnected from the internet and unable to complete assignments, classes or exams, unsuitable for distance learning lessons, With lots of video content, one post focused on internet speeds during the COVID-19 outbreaks. Parents had a negative attitude toward this barrier. Next, the third theme in a study, some said that their children lack computer proficiency and prosecute skill to achieve good results through distance teaching. Irving 2010. Some parents believe that the distance learning method of education lacks flexibility in meeting. The last theme, parents need to pay for internet, and if their children must spend more time on the internet for studying purpose, this will cost them more money. Many lecturers and assignments in a range of subjects require a good quality internet connection or a large amount of data usage, which both add to the cost of distance learning online. Lastly, during the pandemic, parents were not restricted to their routines. They assisted the school in teaching students during the pandemic. Many parents struggled to help their children learn remotely. Personal, technical, logistical, and financial barrier. With all of the given points, we can see why parents disagree with distance learning. That's all for me. Thank you.
What a terrific answer from Mr. Amirul. Thank you, thank you. I also agree with the answer. Let's move on to the next, on to the sketch. I'm sorry. Let's move on to the second last question. I would like to ask Ahmad Rashidi about your point just now that not everyone survived the battle of distance learning. Some of them fail hurtfully. Can you give us what is the best solution for them to come back strongly and energetically in their battle in distance learning?
Thank you, Mr. Ahmad Hafiz. Here I'm again to answer the question. A few points from e-learn industry by eager debater written in his article. Firstly, poor time management. Lack of time of the one of the most common reason why students abandon online course. So students have to do time management. It's also something you can teach your students. A regular schedule planner and reminder of course and assignment would be great help students who struggle with the poor time of management skill. Next, problem with motivation. There are ton of reasons why students can lose motivation, from unclear course outcome and lack of control to feeling frustrated because of social isolation. So, student can do the best to make the course to engaging as possible. First, create learning roadmap with a clear milestone like gain knowledge and achievement. This path can display somewhere in the student personal account so that they can follow their own progress and feel satisfied, getting closer to the final goal. Second, vary the information of content and tasks. It could be interactive training, videos, and storytelling. Third, form a community of students and sometimes use group work. Engagement goes up when students feel like they are part of the group. From all these solutions, hopefully it can help them to come back strongly and energy and strongly and powerfully in the battle of distance learning, inshallah. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. I do understand the elaboration from you. Last question for this forum discussion today is for our last panel, Dr. Aisha. As a lecturer or an educator, you should also give some attention and observe your students to assess their level of performance physically and mentally. So I am curious, throughout this distance learning, are the students satisfied with this kind of learning?
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Hafiz. Let me explain a little bit about my answer for that question. Okay, Ellen ETL 2002, Settle and Settle 2007 pointed out that findings of the literature indicate that there are no significant differences between the traditional classroom teaching methods and distance education programs in terms of outcomes. But there seems to be some differences between the two in terms of student satisfaction. According to the Bodiger and Martindale 2004, Reinhardt and Sensaidel 2001, Sahin 2007, student satisfaction is an important indicator of the quality of learning experience. There are a number of studies on the determinants of student student satisfaction with distance education. Besides, there are numerous factors influencing student satisfaction and program performance. Quality of course materials, content of the course, quality and the type of interaction between student and lecturer, interaction with other students, students' satisfaction, and the structure and presentation style of the course are among those mentioned factors. This is as stated in Wagner ETL 2005. Referring to the Youth Shelter and Yildirim 2008, it is worth examining the determinations of satisfaction with distance education programs and courses, since the nature of the relationship between students as well as students and lecturers are different in distance education. Allen and Seaman 2008, Debord 1999, Moore and Kessler 1996, Pike 1993 has stated that student satisfaction is not just an indicator of the quality of students' learning experience. It is also provides us with cues regarding the quality of the program, student loyalty, as well as a means in attracting new students to the program or the course. Creating satisfied students may help improve the quality of education as well as moderate students' resistance to new teaching processes and platforms. Hence, in order to identify the areas needed improve and develop, it is critically important for the program developers, course, course content designers, educators as well as managers to understand the determinants of student satisfaction with distance education. And it was stated in Rehat as Shini 2001, Wagner VD 2005. Therefore, I can say that some students may be satisfied and some are not. However, I believe that every lecturer will always improve their way of learning, such as interaction with students, to create a satisfied student in order to increase their improvement as an educator and have successful students. That's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Aisha, for the explanation. Well, that as I said earlier, that was the last question for our forum discussion today. I truly believe that this discussion has a lot of benefits and information. I really hope that our time spent here is worth it. Thank you again to our panels today that are willing to spend their precious time to be here. Last but not least, if we have some other time like this again, I hope that we can have this kind of forum discussion again, where we can discuss other topic too. Thank you.